Hello and welcome. I just got my very first set of Holbein colored pencils, and I wanted to see how they would stack up against my current colored pencils, which are the Prismacolor and Polychromos. I picked out very similar colors in each set so we could have a fairly similar comparison, and I got to work swatching them all out. I found it very important to see how these colors worked on dark and light colored paper, so I'm using alcohol marker just to create a black section on my paper. This is my very first time using Holbein colored pencil, and I am shocked at how thick this core is, holy moly. So let's swatch these out. Over the black, it's very pigmented. Let's see if I can get it darker. Not too much darker. So I'm adding pretty good pressure on the front half and then slowly tapering off to get it as light pressure as I can. Let's see just how light I can get them. Okay, not too bad. These are very pigmented. Over the black, this white is insane. Now this might seem a little odd to mention, but they feel a little bit like using crayons. There's just so much character when you lay out these colors on the paper, even in just a swatch form. They're so vivid and textured. Now this is just a little side project for myself. I like to sometimes use colorless blender to blend out the colors a little bit. They blend out a tiny bit, but not too much, not a ding against it. Next up is Prismacolor. Now, my immediate comparison between the two so far is that Prismacolor is it's a much finer line that you get when you're coloring. Almost like the core of the pencil is not as soft as the Holbein ones, so you can get a lot finer details, but maybe not as rich or pigmented in the actual color. They're so smooth though. So you can see a side-by-side of the pigment between the two blacks so far. Let's see if we can get this any darker. With a lot of pressure, that barely made a difference. Now this white is kind of giving me the same problems that I was having with the black, where the pigment just isn't as rich as the Holbein. They do, however, blend together very well. Let's blend some out with my old colorless blender, and they do blend out a lot better. But not a ding or a pro, that's just my own weird thing. And I forgot to show you what they look like, so this is a pencil up close. Polychromos, let's go. Now this is a very soft pastel yellow. It's the closest yellow I could find in comparison to the other two. And over that black, I am shocked at how well that colored up over the black. Oh my word, look at how bright this is over the dark color. Is it as bright over the white? It is. Holy cow. Now let's see the black. Side by side, it is pretty similar in pigment to the Holbein, and this white is just wonderful against the dark also. Let's check blendability. And this is doing great. Now in my own weird test, this does lift a little bit, but not too much. I do feel like the Prismacolor won on blendability and buttery smooth texture. The other two offered a lot of texture, Holbein more so than the Polychromos, and they were both more vibrant. Now I did forget about testing out the erasability, so Prismacolor, these erasers were built on the Prismacolor pencils, so it's going to work there. The other two surprisingly did erase better than I expected, but it's not all the way gone. Now this first test, I am starting out with my Holbein colored pencils because they're brand new to me and I am so excited to use them. Side note, it's very tight in a regular pencil sharpener. I didn't have that problem with the other ones, but this one, it's a little bit thicker in diameter than a regular pencil, which is interesting. Now it's a little bit odd to sketch with such a pigmented colored pencil. I'm used to sketching with something that's a little bit more forgiving, so there was a little bit more added pressure when sketching just to feel like, oh man, I better make this perfect because these pencils sure are dark. They definitely won't erase all the way. I am starting to notice though how much character this guy has just from this colored pencil. Let's give him a tail. So when I say character, I mainly mean the texture that comes off of the pencil. It's really gritty, really loose in how it goes onto the paper. You're not gonna get a very buttery smooth texture from these pencils, but what you do get is something that feels alive because of the texture that it has. Because you can't control the imperfections that come off of these pigments. Now these are perfect pencils, they are very nice pencils. I don't mean to say that they are imperfect by any means. However, I am used to the buttery smooth Prismacolor type pencils where you put down and then that's exactly what happens. But these you put down and it kind of has its own life on how the texture is going to play out on the paper. It's definitely really fun to work with. So this next one, I'm using Prismacolor, and I'm using the same purple. I kind of want to sketch up some different things, but use kind of the same color scheme just to see how they play side by side. I notice a lot of control with the line work here. So these pencils, it doesn't seem to run away from me so much. The lines go exactly where I intend them to. And I'm actually putting down a fairly good amount of pressure here. You know, it's kind of weird to go do this next to a very pigmented colored pencil because there's a pro and a con to every colored pencil. The pro to this one is that you get really soft colors, really blendable. You don't need to put a lot of pressure down on the page to get really blended colors, so that is fantastic. Let's see how these colors layer on top of each other. I wonder if I can get the same texture that I did with Holbein with these, just by using the pencil sideways. And let's see doing it not sideways. See, it's a lot smoother. You can get good texture, and you can get good smooth texture, so that's great too. I am kind of interested to see how many layers I can get down on this without totally ruining the piece, and I'm getting pretty close. I'm starting to feel that I'm burnishing out the page just a little bit with how much pressure I'm putting down. Let's see how much this smudges. Oh wow. Barely. Interesting. All right, Polychromos time. So again, this is a very pigmented colored pencil. It's a weird thing to color with such a pigmented pencil. I don't know if I'll ever get over that fact. Let's see how light I can get this. Ooh, let's give him some like gobblers, like a mustache. All right, so let's start adding in some layers. Now with these colored pencils, I noticed that I can get a lot more variation with one pencil, more so than I can with the Holbein. The Holbein was, you put one color down with little pressure, you put one color down with a lot of pressure, you're gonna get the same color, but these Polychromos, I'm noticing that you get the variation, so you can get kind of a range of colors from one colored pencil, which is always good. I hate these legs, so I'm gonna give him red shoes. I don't really know what I was thinking. If he was real, he would definitely be toppling over and could never stand up straight. Now let's see how they layer on top of each other. They layer really well. This feels more effortless than the other two for sure. So maybe blendability isn't the strong suit, but layering is really good. And it does smudge just a little bit. So we have Holbein, Prismacolor, and Polychromos. And here's what my finger looks like after I smudge it. Now, like I said, I do this weird thing that is not how colored pencils are intended to be used. I use a colorless blender to kind of smudge it out, and it kind of gives it like a watercolory type effect. I know that it works with Prismacolor, but I've never tried it with Polychromos or Holbein. And this is wet, so it will dry a little bit lighter than this, but it's still kind of cool to get like a blending vibe or just have more options available with how you finish a piece. And again, no pros or cons, just something interesting. So for this next test, I wanted to see how these colored pencils perform on very smooth paper. I usually work in a sketchbook, and this particular sketchbook that I'm on is a marker pad, so super smooth. But since I do use all different kinds of mediums in my sketchbook and I don't use them typically as advised, I figured it would still be helpful to know how these colored pencils perform on smooth paper. Now in this next experiment, I'm not really looking to make all of these sketches look very similar. I'm just kind of seeing what kind of things I can achieve with each different colored pencil. Because I do feel like you have to play with the pros of each different kind of pencil. You do have to color a little bit differently with each one in order to get the colored pencil to look its best. So comparing it or trying to mimic a different style of a different colored pencil, it's not going to look its best. So in this experiment, I'm leaning more into the pros of each colored pencil and creating a piece with all of the good things about each colored pencil in mind. I fully expected the smooth paper to fully transform how the texture of the colored pencils looked. I did not expect to get this kind of texture with a smooth paper, so I am pleasantly surprised. So let's give this guy a little bit more depth with some dark blue, and this guy's almost done. I am really impressed with Polychromos and how it is performing on this guy. Let's move on to Prismacolor. I'm gonna save Holbein for last this time so that I'm not constantly looking back and comparing to Holbein. One thing that I love about Prismacolor is how comfortable they are to sketch with. Since they're not very pigmented, the pressure is almost not even existent when you're sketching. And sketching when you have no idea what you're sketching, you kind of need to be able to just kind of erase it or move in a different direction if you don't like it. And with Prismacolor, it gives you that flexibility. Now, since Prismacolors are not insanely pigmented like the other two, I am leaning more into the pastel type vibe with this one and really leaning into the blendability, because that is one thing that I noticed is really great about Prismacolors is they blend so well. So I'm trying to create a piece with that in mind. So I'm going in now with a very dark blue and just kind of trying to add some depth to the line work and to the shadows. And one thing that I noticed is I'm pressing really hard. To get the full depth of color, you are pretty much burnishing out the paper, and just know that when you do that, you can't really color over it, so it has to be your final move. So this last space is meant for the Holbein colored pencils, and I tinkered a little bit with what I wanted to draw, and I don't think that my original intention was a turtle, but knowing that I couldn't erase this, I just kind of had to go with it, and I tried to make it work for the intention of just learning about the colored pencil. So far, what I know about these pencils is that they are very textured, and they are very pigmented. And what I learned in my last test was that these layer very well. They don't necessarily blend too well, but they do layer very well. So that is what I am leaning into with this little turtle guy. Now for a lot of this, I was using the colored pencils as lightly as I could so that I could get a lot of layers on top of each other and still be able to kind of see the layer underneath. And then for areas like the cracks in the shell, I was able to honestly not even use that much pressure. These colors are so pigmented. Just like with the Polychromos, I am very impressed with how much texture this has on smooth paper. Now at this point, I'm trying to push a little bit harder, use a little bit more pressure to see how far I can push these pencils and how quickly I can get the result that I am hoping for. Now, since these colored pencils are very rich, super hard isn't going to get you a super deep color. It's always going to be rich, no matter if you're pushing hard or pushing soft. You kind of have to choose the color that you want from the very beginning, which that's just something that you have to know when you're using these colored pencils. This next test was more for fun than anything. I just wanted to see if I could get 3 pictures to look similar using the same technique for each colored pencil. So I did the same shadows and the same highlights and the same color. I also really wanted to see how they perform over marker. I hadn't done that yet, and this is a marker pad. So let's see how colored pencil goes over marker, alcohol marker, I should mention, and see what kind of results you get. And what I have noticed is not really anything new. You get deep colors with Holbein, you get the textures with Holbein and Polychromos. Polychromos blends so well. Prismacolor is good for really light and pastel type drawings, and they blend really well as well, and very smooth. They're all just good for different purposes. If I had to pick one, that's a hard one. They're all good for different reasons, and they all give different results. Right now, I would say that my favorite colored pencil is Polychromos. I reserve the right to change my opinion with everything that I draw because I do switch up whatever I draw all the time, and what mediums I'm using. I just get too bored. So I will definitely be using all 3 of these at different times to get different effects. It's always fun to see the new things that you can create. So here are the results. This is Prismacolor, Holbein, and Polychromos. So the results are in. Holbein is good for rich, deep color sessions, great for layering, okay at blending, excellent for texture, not great for soft smoothness. Prismacolors are great for soft blending sessions, not ideal for deep dark coloring. They're great at blending, but not ideal for layering a ton. But they do have a smooth texture. Polychromos is great for vibrant colors, especially on colored paper. They layer beautifully, and they're a good middle ground between texture and smoothness. I hope this video helps you, and if you have a favorite colored pencil, let me know, and maybe I can try it someday. That would be a lot of fun. Until then, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.